here with my guest Jay Rayner today. His new book, Nights Out at Home, is it in shops today, right, Jay?
It's published on Thursday, but you can pre-order through all good online retailers.
All of them, including Amazon, maybe.
I couldn't.
Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah, you can. There are some good deals for this book around.
Just in case you're wondering, who is this person? Is Jay Rayner, who's getting ahead of us here, and he's uncovered the nation's eateries from high-end restaurants to street grills. For 15 years, he's graced our screens as a MasterChef critic, an authority on restaurants at The Observer since 1999, and reporting on The One Show, and podcasts and live shows and jazz. We have so many places to go here. It's like Dr. Seuss. It's great to see you. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I do have a low boredom threshold, and so things get slightly out of hand, and then I think, what can we do with this, and how can we do that? And
but that must be lovely to have the luxury of, if you have a low boredom threshold, to have loads of places to go with it.
I am quite keen on finding new ways to talk to audiences, if that doesn't sound really patronising.
No.
And I about 11 years ago, when I had a book out, which is quite a pointy-headed thing about genuine definitions of sustainability in food, I suddenly realised it was fodder for those discussion panels at literary festivals, and I hate them.
Yeah, because?
Because the person who's interviewing you usually hasn't done enough research.
Yes.
And so you're arguing with someone who doesn't know what they're talking about. He says pompously, but it's genuinely the case.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk to the audience anyway. So I came up with a one-man show using PowerPoint as a second performer on stage. Before I knew it, I was sort of touring the country doing shows.
Yes.
I'm doing one with this book as well. And I just love being able to interact with an audience. Yeah. A writer's life is sitting at home at a desk, tapping away. I'm doing that thing you're not meant to do on radio, which is
tapping
hit the desk.
Away at the desk, yes.
And staring out the window by yourself.
Yeah.
But then the other bits of me, the old Queenie, the person who goes off on stage, whether it be as one-man shows or the side hustle, which got wildly out of control, which is jazz. Yeah. And I just love an audience.
Yeah, that is intriguing. Now, where does that come from, communication-wise and
When I was a kid, my old dad, Des, no longer with us, but he was an actor. And I thought when I was a teenager that I wanted to be an actor. And then I realised that a talent for remembering your lines and showing off was not the same as acting. Although when I said that recently to a couple of friends who were actually actors, they said it'd be great if a few more people in the business realised that.
Early.
Yeah, and so I suppose there was always that bit of me. But I became a print journalist, and then I came through this medium, radio, on Radio 4, BBC Radio 4. Other broadcasters are available. And they...
Thank you.
And bit by bit, I emerged through radio, started doing TV, and then live TV with The One Show, which I no longer do. But it seemed a simple jump to head onto stage, and talk to people directly in that way.
I used to watch your mum on TV when I was a kid.
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
Rayner.
I'm deep glazed in privilege, and when people say, you're only doing what you're doing because of what your mum did. And in a way, they're right. Now, we'll come back to this.
Because I wasn't making that connection.
No, I know you weren't.
I'm still stuck on deep glaze, that you'd use a culinary metaphor for your own situation.
When I was growing up, in my house, my dad had been an actor.
Yeah.
He was a painter. He was my mother's agent. My mum was a novelist, a broadcaster, a newspaper columnist, and all these things.
Yeah.
So the real privilege of my life, apart from a bit of money growing up and all that stuff, was that I saw that jobs which for other people looked unobtainable were just what people did.
Yes,
so that when I saw them as things to do, I thought, well, I'll just do that. It took me, I have to tell you, it took me 20 years to come up with a line to answer the thing, you're just a product of nepotism, which was...
The Nepo baby.
The Nepo baby, which was why having a mother who was an expert on premature ejaculation should get me a job on MasterChef, I don't know.
The connection is very, very loose, isn't it? It's
quite
very
loose.
Quite loose. When you put it like that.
Yeah.
And I suppose the other thing to say is that Nepo babies, so-called, will only succeed if they're talented. I mean, in the sense that you in this business, you can't be useless actor and just because your dad was there or your mother was a great actor.
Certain things perhaps can open a door, but it's not going to. You're not going to get over the threshold. And as a result, I've been the restaurant critic for 25 years, and they haven't sacked me yet.
I have to use delicate language here because of the nature of the station. We're live on radio.
Of course.
But there was you speak very frankly in Nights Out, at Home, your new book, about your physical appearance, if you want to call it that. You talk about the Greenspan, if I may, derriere, to give it a...
We can use one word in the national newspapers, but not on Virgin. Fair enough. I talk about having a Greenspan bottom.
That's right.
Which is being having a large... being a large man,
right.
And that's a genetic inheritance from being basically a peasant from Middle Europe who grew up on the Russian steppes when the Cossacks were coming. So, the pickings were meagre,
yes.
and you would store calories in your body, and that natural selection would mean that after my forebears landed at Limehouse in the East End, it's a Jewish story, really.
Yeah, it is.
Those are you look at all of us, we were all chunkily built. Anybody who's listening who remembers my late mother Claire will know she was not a thin, slender woman.
Yes.
We were all built that way.
Yes.
And then people see me as the restaurant critic for the Observer and think, well, that's why you're a big man. And go, nah, I'd always have been like this, love.
Yeah. So you're not relating the job to the physical appearance. You're just saying
I am relating
the
the job
genes.
only to the fact that I am the man who likes going out for dinner. So I'm perfectly suited to being the restaurant critic and to writing this book.
Tell us a bit about the book, will you, please?
All right. So one of the things I've always done is if I've gone out for dinner and there's been a dish and I thought, well, that's a really good idea. I wonder if I could make a version of it at home. And I go home and I reverse engineer it. Classic one is a crispy duck salad from the Ivy. Now, my version, I take 2 confit duck legs, crisp them up, break them up, turn them in hoisin, a little bit of hoisin, put it on a salad. Delicious, very close. The actual version, because I then went and looked at the real recipe, is a conscientious chef's recipe. Yeah. You take duck legs, you simmer them in aromatics for 4 hours, you cool them, break them up, deep fry them. The sauce has 7 ingredients. And I thought, well, here's something, the reverse engineering. Every single chef whose dish has inspired a recipe in this book, and there are 60 of them, was consulted by me and said, do you mind if I do this? And I talked to Mark Hicks, who was the chef who came up with that crispy duck salad at the Ivy, very famous, and told him what I was doing. He went, yeah, that'd work.
Really?
So some of them are, because you don't have a whole brigade of chefs in your kitchen, do you?
Yes.
They are ideas inspired by, and they're not the big name restaurants generally because they all have their cookbooks. You don't need me to tell you how to make a Michel Roux dish. You can go and get one of his cookbooks.
You went to Greg's, didn't you?
There is a recipe inspired by the mighty Greg's steak bake.
See, now we're talking.
Oh yeah, no. Well it's high and it's low.
It's a bit of everything.
A bit of everything in there.
Yeah.
So the Greg's steak bake. There may be a deep fried apple pie. Don't make them often, children. We know what those do to you. A deep fried apple pie inspired by the one at McDonald's, and some peri-peri chicken livers, courtesy of my trips to Nando's.
They're
really good.
And of course
really
they are. I mean, I was
really
there only a couple of weekends ago, and then I was struck by a place that I haven't been to in my own neighbourhood, where I am at the moment is St John's Wood, and you've got
Oslo Court.
Oslo Court.
Have you never been?
No, I haven't. But I tell you what I was struck by was the history of the place. You said forever 1977.
So this is a book which is as much to be read as to be cooked from.
Right.
It's a functional cookbook, but it can certainly be a bedside table. The story of Oslo Court, which sits on the ground floor of a mansion block in London, St John's Wood, is extraordinary. It's very retro. I think my review started when it's 7 o'clock in London. It's 1982 at Oslo Court. And they do steak Diane, and they do coquille Saint-Jacques, and they have a dessert. Melba toast. And the story of it being set up as a drinking club for Norwegian freedom fighters during the Second World War, is where Oslo Court got its name. It's just a great tale.
Yeah, great story. So that's what I loved about that you could weave a bit of history about a place. Because a restaurant, it can't just be a place to get food. There's an ambience. There's a great staff.
People say I'm a food critic, and I say, no, I'm a restaurant critic. Yeah. I'm reviewing the whole experience when you push through the door.
Okay, when you look at all of the things that you've done to date, whether it's MasterChef or The One Show or The Observer article or column, which of the things bring you greatest joy in life?
People want me to choose.
Okay, I mean, would you rather not?
Well, it's just, I know that if I did anything other than write, I'd starve. Writing is what I am. I'm a writer first, second, fourth and ninth. That's what I've always done, and everything is underpinned by writing.
Because you've done politics, and you've done,
writing about politics.
That's what I'm saying.
All of that. And I've been a general reporter. There's always a notebook in my back pocket. There's one now. And I think actually everything should be underpinned by basic journalistic values and skills. So I love that, but I don't just want to have to do that. So the one-man shows that I do, and then I've been playing the piano for a very long time, and now I have a sextet. It's called the Jay Rayner Sextet because they all said it's your fault when we gathered together.
Yeah.
We play a lot. We played yesterday morning. We did 2 shows at Dean Street in Soho on Friday night.
Nice.
And that is a joy.
Tell me about what are you playing? Are you playing
Well, at the
original
moment, what we're
covers?
doing is a deep dive into the songs of the 80s, which weren't just jazz inflected, but had jazz in their bones. My wife and I, Pat is the singer, and we met at university in Leeds in the 80s, because we're that generation. And we were always fascinated by these particular bands. And we wanted to take those songs and not cover them, but treat them as like songs from the Great American Songbook and jazz interpretations. We're talking stuff by Everything But the Girl, Sade, Matt Bianco.
Lovely.
Working Week. These brilliant bands, Donald Fagen as well. And so it's basically a deep dive into the 80s, and it's a lot of fun.
And you do you give them a jazzy twist? Is that
we
it?
don't need to, actually.
You don't need
That's
to,
the thing.
okay.
It's not like there's a terrible album of sort of lounge versions of things. That a lounge jazz version of Love Will Tear Us Apart by Joy Division. That's awful.
Yeah.
Because it's not that song. These songs don't need a jazzy twist. Anybody who's listened to Matt Bianco knows it's West Coast swing. Anybody who's listened to Sade knows that this is Latin jazz.
Yes.
You don't have to make them jazz. They are. And so put them into an environment with a bunch of very skilled, experienced jazz musicians, and we will take them and run with them. Often what's going on is we're taking out all the electronics, and it's becoming acoustic apart from electric guitar.
Envy is not an attractive trait, but my goodness, for you to be able to play that piano must be such a thrill in life.
It's a very lovely thing.
Yeah,
I describe myself as the greatest jazz pianist in Britain of all the judges on MasterChef.
Yeah, that's okay. I like that. Very humble too.
Well, in a way, but it's also me saying, look, I do other things.
Of course.
So if you were expecting Oscar Peterson, you might be slightly disappointed, but I can do this, and I will do this, and you're in safe hands.
I love it. Now, Val, our friend, has been on to say, Ryan, I remember well back in the 80s meeting Jay's mum, Claire. What a lovely lady she was. It appears to me that Jay has inherited her warmth and spirit, so pass on love from me. So there you are.
Well, you see, that's an inheritance, isn't it? Love from my mother passed on to me. I feel like I've benefited from that.
From that. The tour with the book tour, that's going to be you. It's a one-man show, I presume.
It's a one-man show. So originally I was going to be interviewed by a different person every night in a tour around the UK. And then, Ryan, I say this delicately, people who do those interviews on stage, they're not always brilliant.
Yeah.
And I realised 3 would be great and 2 would be mediocre and 3 would be awful and I'd hate it. So in the end...
Cut them out. Get rid of them.
What I did was I got 15 of my rather well-known friends, each to ask me a question on video. So it starts with Stanley Tucci saying, Jay, what the hell do you know about anything?
Yeah.
Rob Brydon, aren't you just an insufferable snob?
Oh, I love this, yeah.
Nigella, how'd you roast a chicken?
Yeah.
There's 15 of these.
That's really good. That's really good.
And it is a piece of theatre. It's. I explain how I got the job, what the job is, and it leads you through it all. It's about 55 minutes first half, then Q&A after. And it's all over the country. So I'm in Manchester on Wednesday, then London on Friday. A few tickets left for London. Edinburgh Sunday. Lots of tickets. If you're in Edinburgh, get to the Assembly Rooms.
Get busy. It's called jayrayner.co.uk.
Jayrayner.co.uk. The show's page there will give you all the info and also links, funnily enough, to buy nights out at home.
I've really enjoyed talking to you. I'm really excited to come and see you playing jazz or see you on stage. And congratulations on Nights Out at Home.